In today's video, we are going to cover the absolute worst products you can purchase if you're over the age of 65, or if you're a well-meaning child trying to make your parent or your grandparent's life easier. You will want to stick around for this video to make sure you are not setting your family up for a physical limitation when they get older. If you're new to this channel, I'm Tara, I'm a neurologic physical therapist who has been working with people with mobility issues for over 22 years. And yeah, I've learned a thing or two on things that maybe seem like a good idea when you're younger that absolutely turn out to be the worst idea when you get older, and is the reason why some people end up requiring my services later in life. Okay, so first let's just talk about why someone might end up with a mobility issue as they age. First and foremost, it is inevitable. It's a natural process, or it's a natural part of the aging process, that we do lose strength as we age. Along with that will come loss in mobility, potentially. The other thing is our reflexes decline as we age, our muscles' ability to perform like eccentric contractions, which is a contraction that occurs when a muscle is lengthening. That also declines as we age. And all of this together puts us at an increased risk for falls. A fall many times can lead to a hospitalization. I'm not telling any of you anything new if you are someone who's aging or you've watched someone age. But let's say you are one of those that kind of skates by and you end up not falling. There is something subconscious that can go on in our brain when we start to lose balance. Confidence will just move less, and that can also contribute to a mobility issue as we age. So we want to minimize the number of opportunities to become part of the norm and just accept that we will lose mobility as we age. And we want to optimize as many opportunities as possible to be an outlier and be that 80-year-old or that 90-year-old that you see, that you admire, that's still going to the gym and walking every day. That's the category hopefully we're all trying to strive for. And so, long story short, absolutely you want to avoid these products to maintain your mobility, maintain your balance, confidence, and maintain your muscle strength. Number one, and it is something I see more and more common, are lift chairs. Those recliners that lift you up out of a chair. I can tell someone has one of those chairs at home from a mile away. It totally changes your mechanics and how you get up out of a chair, because of the way it pushes you up. This is just my opinion. People lose the ability to lean forward. So either that's because you learn to lean back so the chair can push you forward, which is something I've hypothesized, or you just learn how not to lean forward, or your body forgets how to lean forward, which is absolutely critical to getting out of a chair. And if you use a lift chair, you will eventually not be able to stand up from a chair. Now, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but 10 out of 10 times, if someone doesn't have a neurologic condition and they come to me and they can no longer get up out of a chair, a family member brings them to me, they have a lift chair at home. Along those same lines, number two is a raised toilet seat. Now, this is going to be a little bit controversial, but everything I'm going over today, there is a Goldilocks zone. There is a point of no return where these items are essential to maintain your independence. And I totally understand that. I'm talking about those people that don't necessarily need these things, but a well-meaning family member just wanted to make your life easier, so they bought you this item. And a raised toilet seat is one of those items. Now, sometimes a raised toilet seat happens because you have some kind of a joint replacement. You go into the hospital recommends that you use this while you're recovering. Absolutely okay. And definitely if you've had a hip replacement, there's some hip replacements where you absolutely have to sit on a higher surface. So in those cases, you would want a raised toilet seat. But as soon as you are cleared from your doctor that you no longer need to sit on an elevated seat, I would take it off. You want to know that wherever you go in the world, you would be able to use the bathroom. Again, another reason why our world might shrink as we age is that you don't feel comfortable that if you had to go to the bathroom, you'd be able to get up from a toilet, which is a real issue. So that's item number 2 to avoid. Item number 3, and I'm seeing this more and more common, are the walkers that have the high platforms on them. I think they're called like stand-up walkers. These used to be super rare. It was really for someone who was so bent over they could no longer see because they couldn't get their eyes up to look straight out ahead. As a physical therapist, we really resorted or saved those types of walkers for someone that was in that condition. But in the Western world that we live in, if we start to see that something's becoming difficult, we try and make it easier. We see our family member or we see ourselves having a little bit more trouble standing up tall, and we quickly resort to these stand-up walkers. Let me tell you, first of all, those walkers are super bulky, they're very big, and they're very hard to navigate. So if you have an aging spouse, they're going to end up having more and more difficulty getting this in and out of a car. I know they're getting more lightweight, but they're still bigger and harder to maneuver than just a regular walker. And once you start using it, it's going to be very hard to go back to any type of a regular walker because you are losing the ability, or you have lost the ability to actually activate those muscles on your own. So again, there is that zone. These are generalizations. There are outliers. I would say the one outlier is if you fall and you break your wrist, or God forbid you break both wrists, which I have definitely seen, and you can't use your wrists and you don't have great balance. That's another scenario where someone might recommend this type of a walker, but as soon as your wrists heal, you definitely want to get rid of that and go back to a standard walker. And yes, I mean standard walker, that silver walker that you see in the hospital that seems the most basic. That is the best walker. And that brings me to product number 3, I think, and that is a rollator. So the walkers with the seat on them absolutely is going to impact your posture. Those people that are bent over, that happens for 2 reasons. One is it just naturally, those rollators, 4-wheel walkers just drift away from you when you walk. And so you're kind of moving further, your hands further and further out. The other reason is, which some companies have kind of resolved this, but is that the seat is in the way, so you have to keep that walker out in front of you. Now, if you are someone that absolutely has to use a rollator, I recommend the U-Step walker. Now, I do have a partnership with them, but I will put a link for their walker in the description below. It's absolutely by far the best walker I can think of for anyone where they tend to lean forward when they're using it. This U-Step walker has something called reverse brakes, so the brakes are always on, and you actually have to squeeze the handles to turn the brakes off. Now, the up and down side of the walker is extremely heavy. The benefit of that is that it's less tippy. The downside of it is it's harder to get in and out of a car. But I would say if you are someone that absolutely needs a rollator because either you have Parkinson's disease or you just don't feel comfortable with any other device, I highly recommend the U-Step walker. Link for that is in the description below. By clicking on that link, I do receive a commission, so just be aware of that. If you want to learn more about it, link for that's in the description below. Now, why do I say a standard walker or a walker with just 2 wheels on the front is the best? Well, without having wheels on the back of that walker, when it drifts away from you, those back legs kind of go down, so they push down into the ground and it slows the walker down. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that there's no seat in the way. So that means you can get inside the walker and you don't need to push it really far out in front of you. Okay? So stand-up walkers, don't like them unless you are in the rare percentage of people where no other assistive device works, which I just talked about. The next thing is a companion chair. Now, this is more for the caregivers, but I have seen that when a family member starts to slow down or move more slowly, that we automatically resort to what we call transport chairs or companion chairs when we go out in public. And that used to be a good idea back in the day when there were no other options. It was either the person walks or the person rides in a wheelchair. And so in order for a family member to keep up with us, we just resort to that companion chair. Well, there are these new products on the market that are like a rollator and a companion chair in one. Now remember, I told you there's nuance to everything, so I'm fully aware that I just finished saying a rollator is not appropriate unless it means that you are just going to sit at home or family members aren't going to take you out. Then in that case, these new rollators actually have the function to turn into a wheelchair. So what that means is it means that your family member can walk as much as possible. Let's say you're getting into a crowd or you need to get in line for something, sit them down, turn the walker around, and you can push them. And then when you get to wherever you need to go, they can stand back up and walk again. So several reasons I love this. One is that it's not super great as a wheelchair, so it's going to encourage family members and the person riding it to actually walk more than because it's not like quite as comfortable as a wheelchair. But number two, it means that you don't have to rely on a wheelchair. It's not black or white. You can actually walk as much as possible and just sit when you absolutely need to. So the avoid product is the companion chair at all costs. If there is no other way for your family member to get out and spend time with you, then this rollator with the leg rests on it, absolutely a game changer for a lot of people that are in that kind of in-between phase. Now let's talk about shoes. Okay, so let's first just talk about wedged shoes. Why do primarily women resort to wearing like wedged shoes as they age? And this is for anyone who's a little bit younger. Maybe you're watching this video for a family member and maybe you're in your 30s or 40s. There are people that they have careers where they wear super high heels every day. And what happens to some people when they get older is they lose the ability for their foot to be flat on the ground. Their calf muscle becomes so tight because they spent so much of their time in high heels that they can no longer get their feet flat. And so they have to wear a wedged shoe. So my suggestion, I don't think wedge shoes are great. Obviously, they change your center of mass a little bit. They also change the way that the muscles in your ankles can work to keep you balanced if you start to lose your balance. So my suggestion is if you can no longer get your feet flat, stretch, stretch, stretch. Stretch on a wedge as much as possible. I have lots of videos on this channel on how to stretch your calf muscles. And then have the intent of slowly switching to lower and lower shoes. So maybe right now you can't get your feet flat, but try as much as you can to start switching to a lower shoe. If you're younger, advice, don't wear high heels all the time, or don't wear those super, super high heels so that you don't set yourself up for a mobility issue when you get older. All right, now sticking on the idea of shoes, the other shoe is those rocker bottom shoes. I don't love them. I get the point. Like some claim that you use more energy, so you burn more calories. So I know that's why a lot of the women that I work with wear them. Some say that it helps because they have some calf tightness or calf pain. I don't think they're great. And I do think they can contribute to balance problems. I think something with as little of a sole as possible, get your foot more in contact with the ground. And we do know that having more of that connection with the ground can help a little bit with your balance. So getting less distance between your actual bare foot and the ground, I think, this is kind of a hot take, but I think is better. And so if you are in those super thick soled shoes, maybe just switch to like a New Balance, which still has a pretty thick sole, but you're kind of getting closer. And then if you can, occasionally get down to eventually maybe get down to something that has a very thin sole on the bottom. And then that is it for this video. There's a ton more products that I see, so there will probably be a part 2 to this video, but hopefully you guys found this video helpful. Hopefully, if you are a family member trying to make your other family member's life easier, this will give you a little bit of food for thought on how much you want to help your family member. If it's you, maybe hopefully this will encourage you to kind of work on rebuilding an area where you're having a challenge, which I have tons of videos on this channel to work on sit to stands. I will put a link for a couple of those in the description below to maybe get out of a lift chair if you're using a lift chair. So check those videos out. If you're new to this channel and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload new videos. I enjoyed spending time with you all today, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.